Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
And today we're going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. Released in 2014, directed by James Gunn, written by James Gunn and Nicole Perlman, and starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Lee Pace, Michael Rooker, John C. Reilly, Karen Gillan, with the voices of Vin Diesel and Bradley Cooper, and Josh Brolin, which I don't know if they did motion capture for Thanos in this or if it was strictly CGI and he just did voice for it, but he is the voice of Thanos, that Josh Brolin. This was an interesting Marvel release, I would say, because up until Guardians, I knew who all these characters were, and I had no idea who the Guardians of the Galaxy were. It's just not a comic book I read or was honestly even aware of.
I was the same situation. I had no idea who they were, and when I figured maybe I would recognize some of them from cards that I had or whatever, or maybe the X-Men cartoon, since when they went into space and stuff. It seems like I might have known Star-Lord. But I don't think so. I think I'm just thinking of Cabal from Mortal Kombat.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think any of the Marvel trading cards I had the Guardians on it. And if it did, I don't know if it was because the original Guardians of the Galaxy weren't necessarily these characters. I know Rocket Raccoon and maybe even Groot came in later in the 80s or maybe even the 90s. So, I know my trading cards were from the 90s, so it's possible. But at the same time, the original Guardians were a different group of characters. But when they announced Guardians of the Galaxy, I remember thinking, who? And then when they showed the first concept art, I remember being like, I don't know who any of these guys are. Like, there was a giant tree guy in the background,
right? And
then there was Rocket Raccoon. Those were the the two characters that catch your eye the most, or for me anyway. And I thought it's kind of, I wasn't sure about a gun-toting raccoon, how that was going to really play on screen.
Especially with CGI and how believable was it going to look.
Right. So it just seemed weird. And it was, I think, a gamble for Marvel, obviously, because, Iron Man, up until the movie came out, they said Iron Man was kind of a B character. And you could probably even say the same thing about Thor, maybe. Captain America was a little bit more mainstream. But Guardians was very, I feel like you and I, who don't necessarily read comics on a regular basis, are still somewhat knowledgeable about comic characters. And you and I had no idea who the Guardians were.
Right. So
I think it was a gamble for Marvel to do, and it really paid off, because it's, in my opinion, it's one of the best Marvel movies that we've gotten so far.
Yeah, I agree. It was a gamble, and it's super well written, super well directed, and very enjoyable. The characters are full of life. They brought the comedy to this one, which I typically wouldn't like, because it's pretty packed in there. But I think with the characters and maybe the setting, just the fact that they're out in space and stuff, and just the way it was done, Chris Pratt's deliveries and everything just really worked.
The comedy is on point in this movie, and I think part of the reason that it works so well is none of it feels forced. They're not. It doesn't feel like they're trying really hard for laughs. It's just these natural kind of jokes. Like Drax, every time he says something, I feel like it's just hysterical. The fact that his character, is very literal and doesn't understand metaphors, I think is just a really funny character trait.
Right.
And they can play off that a lot, and it works really well. And then Rocket just is, I just like all the characters. They all have their kind of quirks, and they also have kind of their superpowers, if you will. And I love that Rocket is kind of this technical genius, but he's also just kind of a smart aleck, He just doesn't. He just kind of doesn't care, but even though he does, obviously, especially about Groot. But
oh yeah,
they're just really cool characters. Even Groot has one of my favorite moments in terms of comedy, or in terms of the whole movie, really, is when Groot. It's towards near the end of the film, during the kind of the big action sequence, and there's a bunch of bad guys running, and Groot kind of throws his plant arm through a bunch of them, just starts swinging them around and knocks down all those guys, and he's yelling. And then he turns around towards the camera and just gives this big smile, like I did okay type of thing. It's wonderful. It's great. Yeah. If that wasn't an indication, we will be talking about the whole film, which we always do. So if you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy, I spoiled a little bit, I guess, for you right there. But be sure to watch it before you listen to the rest of the podcast, because we'll definitely get into more heavy spoilers as we go on.
Yeah. Another thing I love about this movie is the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
There's a lot of music in it, and just whenever one of those scenes comes up and you hear the music, it just kind of gets you pumped.
Mm-hmm. And it's such. I mean, James Gunn, I think, did a great job of picking the songs. The songs work for the scenes. And it's this collection of older songs. They're songs from, I think, the 70s. I think, mostly from the 70s, or maybe all from the 70s. And it works so well, kind of surprisingly, especially in this setting, this sci-fi, just this world, and yet the music just kind of seamlessly fits. I'm hoping he strikes the same gold with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
You mean the music?
Yeah. Well, all around. I hope he strikes gold.
Well, he's got that new tape now.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got... And I think... I can't remember exactly, but I'm almost positive James Gunn had kind of already picked the songs for Volume 2, even before they started shooting. I think he had it in mind. But... or before he maybe even started writing the script.
And that's interesting you say that, because at the end of the movie, it does say the Guardians of the Galaxy will return. So you wonder, how much of a gamble did they take? Like, they were ready to just rev up and go with the sequel on this from the get-go.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like that's how Marvel rolls. They, if this movie had been a flop, that's a ballsy move to put that at the end of the film, especially with a film that doesn't have the kind of the following that these other characters do. So it could have been a big flop, but I think they just are prepared to make sequels to their films. Like, I'm sure they've already got Doctor Strange 2, kind of in the script is probably being written for Doctor Strange 2, and that movie hasn't come out yet. So
sure, but there's a difference of writing Doctor Strange 2 in case the movie does really well, and actually saying, get ready for Doctor Strange 2, because it's coming.
Right. But I wouldn't be surprised if they put that at the end of Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange will return.
Right. They probably just watched Guardians of the Galaxy and was like, this is awesome.
That's kind of how I feel.
There's no way that we're not going to make a sequel to this.
Right. That's kind of how I feel. They probably knew that they were sitting on a gold mine. And so kids really responded to it too. They have that Disney Channel cartoon show, Guardians of the Galaxy, which I've seen snippets of, and I'm not a huge fan of the guy who voices Rocket on that. I don't think he quite has the same charisma that Bradley Cooper brought to the movie, but the rest of it seems pretty good.
Have you gone back and read or learned anything about the Guardians of the Galaxy since seeing the movie?
Nope. No,
me neither.
I always want to get back into reading comics, and I just don't have the money. I would go and buy trade paperbacks, but those are usually $20 a piece, and I usually just don't want to spend $20. And then if I wanted to, if I got back into buying actual issues of comics, those are usually $3 to $5 a piece. And any Guardians books that I'd be buying now would just probably be more in line with kind of the movie. It wouldn't be kind of the older issues or anything, so I wouldn't be really learning anything. So no, I haven't. I always want to, but I don't. Every now and again, I'll buy a paperback. But
yeah, and you definitely won't be able to get into comics anytime soon. You've got a big event coming up.
Yeah, getting married in November, So that's where all my money's going to right now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that'll be cool. So there might be a lull, nothing more than usual, really, but there might be a lull in episodes in November because I'll be out of town.
Yeah, but we've got the next 3 planned.
We've got them planned, and we've got dates to record, so we should be on time for the next 3. Now that it's out there, we have to do it. We have to be on time.
Yes.
So this movie, here's a little interesting tidbit that I actually just found out right before we started recording. This film is written by James Gunn and Nicole Perlman, and I did not know who Nicole Perlman was, so I looked her up on IMDb. Guardians of the Galaxy is her first film credit.
Ever?
For writing, yes. So I thought, okay, well, maybe she's a comic book writer. Maybe she came from the comic book world. So I looked her up on Wikipedia, and that is not the case. She won a Tribeca Film Festival Sloan Grant for Science and Film for a screenplay she wrote. And then she was enrolled in Marvel's screenwriting program in 2009. I didn't even know Marvel had a screenwriting program. But how awesome is that, to get enrolled into Marvel's screenwriting program? And then according to her, she was offered several of the lesser-known properties to which to base a screenplay. So they basically came to her with several characters, and they're like, choose which one you want to write a script for. And she said she went with Guardians of the Galaxy, which apparently kind of surprised Marvel because the quote here is, she says, I can't tell you what the other titles were that they were offering, but I can tell you that one of them was a little bit more appropriate for me just based on gender. And I'm assuming that's Captain Marvel, because now she's attached as a co-writer on Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
But she went with Guardians of the Galaxy. So she wrote a few different drafts of Guardians of the Galaxy, and then in 2012, James Gunn came in and contributed to the script and then directed the movie. And I do wonder, it's such a good movie, I don't want to, I'm assuming they both brought a lot of really good things to it. I wonder how much of the humor was from Nicole, or if James Gunn brought a lot of that in. But James Gunn, I think, is a pretty well-established writer. I mean, he wrote the Scooby-Doo movies, which
those
I don't know how.
not...
I mean, the first one, I haven't seen him in a long time, but the first one I remember thinking was okay. It's obviously geared towards kids, but he did write, and I know we're both a fan of this film, the Dawn of the Dead remake.
I actually was not a big fan of that one.
Oh, I thought you liked that movie.
No, most people do. Most people are a big fan. And I've only seen it once. I need to watch it again.
Yeah.
But no, I remember I wasn't that impressed with it.
Oh. I really liked it, and I don't really care for zombie stuff all that much.
I'm not the biggest fan either. My wife is obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Walking Dead, I got into the first couple seasons, and then I started not really enjoying it that much. Speaking of Walking Dead, we have Michael Rooker in this.
Michael Rooker.
Yeah.
As Yondu.
Yeah. I think I remember him. I think he might have been in the X-Men animated series, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I recognize Yondu, too, with the big Finn mohawk, which they kind of got rid of for the movie. But actually, he's going to have it in Volume 2. But, that looked familiar to me as well. And so I may have seen him before Guardians came out. But I think he's the only one. Even the Collector, I didn't really know who that was. Benicio del Toro's character.
Yeah, I don't. I didn't know him either. But Michael Rooker, I thought was he did a great job.
He did do a great job. He and James Gunn are buddy, so he's in a lot of James Gunn movies, I believe. But yeah, I thought he did a great job, and I thought he's got an interesting power with the whistling and the arrow.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty sweet.
And I loved how they saved the reveal of what that could do till pretty much the very end of the movie.
Yeah. When he's surrounded by the
right, and he just takes them all out within the second.
Yeah.
But it was still really cool the first couple times you see it at the beginning of the movie where he's just, has it hovering there right at your throat or in between your eyes, and pretty threatening with just this little tiny device.
So I was at Comic-Con this year, and they showed a couple clips actually, of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And one of the clips was Yondu wearing the Mohawk fin type thing. And how they presented it in the clip was that the fin actually amplifies his power. So he can get that arrow even farther, I think. Or maybe had more power behind it.
So the longer it is, the farther it goes?
I guess. His Mohawk. All his power is from his Mohawk, I guess.
I mean, the Mohawk is a pretty powerful thing.
Right.
So I was thinking about this towards the end of the movie with the orb, and after everything was taken care of, and it was when Star-Lord runs into those thugs that were at the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
And they're in Ronan's ship. And I realized that if Star-Lord hadn't gone to get this orb at the very moment that he did, they would have gotten it and been completely successful.
Yeah.
Because Star-Lord was there at that moment, just a few minutes before they were, the planet was saved.
Yeah. Yep. And so basically, if he hadn't betrayed Yondu, basically, and gone to get it himself, and if he had just stayed with Yondu, they would have arrived too late to get the orb, and Ronan would have gotten it and given it to Thanos.
No, he wouldn't have given it to Thanos.
Well, at the time, I think he would have, because he didn't know it was an Infinity Stone yet.
True. That's right. How did he find out?
He found out because the Collector opened it, and that girl grabbed it, and then Drax sent Ronan a message, and Ronan came, and he found out it was an Infinity Stone through that, I think.
Okay, so okay. So Thanos would have the stone.
Yeah.
At that point. Which right now the Nova
the Nova core has the stone now. So we were talking a little bit about this right before we started recording. The stones, there's 4 stones we've seen in the cinematic universe, I believe, so far. And I think there's 5 total, I'm assuming. 4 for every knuckle and a glove. Or 5, I guess, with the thumb. So one of them is in Odin's treasure chest, whatever you want to call it. I forget what they call it. The room where he has all of his trophies, basically.
Yeah.
One is with the Collector, which was at the end of Thor 2. Spoilers. And then there's one in Vision's forehead, and now there's one with Novacore. So the 5th one, I don't know where that one's going to come, when it's going to come up, if it's going to be... it could be part of Doctor Strange, I guess, but I'm trying to think of what the next one is. Thor Ragnarok, maybe? Could be in the next Thor movie. But somehow, Thanos, I guess, has to get all these. And then...
Yeah, that's a good question. Is Doctor Strange going to be associated with the Infinity War?
They've introduced so many new characters now. I don't know how many of these characters are going to be in
that's going to be
Avengers.
quite a budget.
Yeah. And I've seen articles, and I can't remember if they said Guardians are not going to be in Infinity War or if they will be. I honestly can't remember. But it seems to make more sense to have Doctor Strange be a part of it than the Guardians, because it's one actor. I mean, you really only need Doctor Strange. You don't have to have any of the side characters, I don't think, from Doctor Strange. Whereas you'd have to get all of the Guardians, basically.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know if he'll be a part of it, but he's a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I would assume he's going to show up. There's a picture from the set of Thor 3, and Thor has like a business card, and it has Doctor Strange's address on it. So it's very possible we'll have a little Doctor Strange cameo in Thor Ragnarok.
Okay. Well, if that happens, then it probably will be associated with Doctor Strange, and I like that because I think Doctor Strange and his world and just the universe that his story takes place in, and his abilities, would really fit alongside that.
Yeah, this movie is very well paced. I think watching it. Granted, I had to watch it in 2 parts these past couple of days. I just didn't have time to watch the whole thing in one night. But still, it moves very well. There's no like boring moments in the film. There's no lulls. It's all quick and exciting and enjoyable. Even when they are getting arrested by the Nova Corps and they're basically doing character introductions. That I think is just funny the way it's all set up, and I like Chris Pratt's. Oh, I didn't know how this machine worked when he's flicking off the police officers, the Nova Corps officers, all that, and then their whole escape from prison I think is just so well done. It cracks me up how Rocket is giving this. He's talking about this plan, and he's like, "This has to be done. It has to be the last thing you do." And then Groot just pulls it out, and he's like, "Or it'll be the first thing, and we can just improvise."
Right.
I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the writing in this is wonderful, and the directing, and that includes the pacing, which you're absolutely right. There really was no breakage or just bumps. It just flows.
Yeah,
the whole movie just flows. What I know you mentioned the Groot part. What were some of your favorite moments besides that?
There's a lot of really good moments in this film, and I think anytime Rocket and Groot are on screen, I was having a good time. And so basically anything with them, but I'll say another part that kind of made me chuckle, even though I've seen this movie a few times now, is with Star-Lord, Peter Quill, when it's near the end of the film, when he runs back into, I don't know the character's name, but he's the guy who sees him in the very beginning. He's played by the actor Jaimin Hinsu, or however you say his name. But he like comes kind of running around the corner, and the bad guy sees him.
Yeah, that's who I was talking about.
Yeah. The guy who catches him basically in the very, very beginning. He sees him again at the end, and he goes, "Star-Lord." And the camera moves in on Peter, and he goes, "Finally." Like, it's just, I just love that part where he's been trying so hard to get people to call him Star-Lord.
Hey, it's Star Prince.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah, and so when somebody finally calls him Star-Lord, it's just like the best moment he's had, so like it's his happy day.
Yeah, Chris Pratt, this was actually the first movie that I had seen with him in it.
Yeah.
And would you consider him a fairly new actor?
He's been around for a while, but he's not been in the spotlight, I don't think. And I knew him before this movie from Parks and Recreation.
Gotcha.
He played a character on Parks and Recreation for a while, and he was really funny on that show. And then I think it was this movie that really took him to another level and made him basically a movie star now.
Yeah, he's one of the hottest actors out there right now.
Yeah.
So he had Jurassic World.
Right. He had a string of kind of blockbusters one after the other, which I think really helped him. But this movie, I think, is the one that really launched him. And I remember reading about when he got cast, because when he was on Parks and Rec, he wasn't as in shape as he is in this movie. And he was kind of fairly chubby, he wasn't fat, but he was just kind of overweight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember reading, because James Gunn was like, I don't know if he can get in shape in time for the movie, But he was like, but I don't care. He's perfect for the role, and everybody's just going to have to deal with their first chubby superhero. He was like, I don't care if he can lose the weight or not. He's playing Peter Quill, which I thought was pretty cool. And then, of course, he did. He obviously is in tremendous shape by the time the movie came out.
Right.
And he seems to have stayed that way for, he was that way in Jurassic World, and he looks like he's that way for Magnificent Seven that comes out, I think, this week. Next week, or a week from now.
Yeah. And see, that's another one right there. That's another big one.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's got Guardians 2 coming out. They're doing a sequel to Jurassic World.
Yeah. He's got a big movie coming out I'm assuming it's going to be a big movie coming out this winter called Passengers with Jennifer Lawrence. So he's doing quite well for himself.
Yeah. And he seems to be, from what I've read, a pretty down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
And I know he's got at least one kid that seems like he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, I obviously have never met the guy, but from what I can tell, it seems like he is, yeah. He's married to Anna Faris from the Scary Movie movies,
Okay.
But yeah. I really enjoy watching Chris Pratt, and I think, I hope he continues to have success so that I can continue to go see his movies.
Me too. I agree with that completely.
What did you think of Dave Bautista as Drax the Destroyer?
I like him.
Yeah.
He's not really an actor.
He was a WWE superstar.
Right.
Turned actor,
but
much like
when you know that information, then he does a great job. Right. I mean, technically, WWE. Yeah, I mean they're technically actors too.
Yeah, they're entertainers for sure.
Right.
They're playing characters most of the time. But I feel the same way though. Like when I saw that Dave Bautista was going to be in this film, I remember being like, just because I'm always kind of hesitant to accept, I think, WWE stars in especially big blockbuster films. I remember thinking that with The Rock when The Rock first started making movies.
Right.
I didn't really want to see his films. I didn't really care, and then I eventually started seeing him, and I actually realized he was pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty decent.
Yeah, and now I enjoy most of his films.
Yeah. And
so Dave Bautista I kind of had the same reaction to. And then I saw the movie and I thought I thought he did a great job. I thought he's really good as Drax.
Yeah.
He's got the comedic timing, for a lot of those moments. So, yeah, I thought I was actually impressed with him.
That's something, now that we're talking about that this movie has that a lot of movies miss, and that was chemistry between the entire crew.
Yeah.
Everyone just kind of melded well together here.
Mm-hmm.
Vin Diesel, of course, did a great job with Groot.
Yeah. I had a friend who is not a comic book, person, and saw his name on the poster and everything, and when he saw it, he was like, "Why did they get Vin Diesel?" He was like, "He had one line." He was upset that all he said was "I am Groot," and they paid Vin Diesel like who knows how much money to play Groot. And I was like, "Yeah, but I mean, he was perfect."
Yeah. I forget how I've only seen a handful of Vin Diesel movies because I haven't seen the Fast and Furious movies, except I did actually watch most of the first one recently because you told me how they're kind of a guilty pleasure of yours.
Yeah, I'll give you a little. I'll tell everybody. I used to really dislike the Fast and Furious movies.
Was it because of Paul Walker?
Well, I didn't like Paul Walker. I feel almost bad saying it now, but I did not like Paul Walker as an actor at all. I thought he was terrible.
Did you ever start to like him?
Yes. But the first movie I just didn't think was a very good movie either. I just didn't like it. And so I boycotted the rest of the Fast and Furious movies, and they kept making them, and I just kept getting more and more frustrated that these movies were doing well.
You kept getting furious.
Right, yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, Fast and Furious. And so Fast 5 came out, And everybody just went nuts over it and talked about how great it was, and I just did not care and did not want to see it. And then Fast 6 was about to come out, and I decided that I didn't want to be a snob about it anymore, and I would give the movies a chance. So I rewatched the first one, still didn't really like it that much. Watched the second one, thought it was terrible. Watched the third one, and didn't think it was very good, but also didn't hate it. And then the fourth one is not that great. And so, surprisingly, I kept going. But I watched Fast 5, and I think with Fast 5, they decided, they were like, hey, let's stop trying to take this so seriously and just have some fun with it. And Fast 5 is really good and very enjoyable. And I think around that time, too, Paul Walker, I didn't mind him anymore. I think if you watch those movies, especially if you kind of marathon them, you can really see him grow, I think, as an actor. I mean, there's not a whole lot for those movies for him to grow too much, but he's a much better actor, I think, by the end of the series than he was at the beginning of the series. Mm-hmm. And then Fast 6 comes out, and it's just crazy ridiculous, and I loved it. And so now I'm like, I only own Fast 5, 6, and 7, but I'm a big fan of the franchise now, so I'm kind of excited about seeing the new one. But yeah, but Vin Diesel, I mean, it's just, they're so ridiculous. 5, 6, and 7. And The Rock is a great kind of counterpart to Vin Diesel's character. And they just have these, like, the ridiculous lines. It's funny. They're really fun.
Gotcha. I brought that up because, like I said, I haven't seen really any Vin Diesel movies except Pitch Black, Chronicles of Riddick. I haven't seen Riddick, the third one. But I always forget. I forget how deep Vin Diesel's voice is.
yeah.
So yeah. Groot, yeah, he definitely fit the bill.
Definitely.
I heard, I'm not sure if it's true, but I heard that he really, really kind of pleaded for that role and
oh, really?
Put in a lot of interest and was like, I really, really want to play Groot.
Nice.
So they gave it to him.
That's cool. Vin Diesel apparently, from what I heard, is a big D&D fan.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. When you see Vin Diesel, especially if you just look at his character in the Fast and Furious movies, you don't expect that person to be a D&D fan, but
right.
Apparently he is. What do you think about Bradley Cooper as Rocket?
Fantastic.
Yeah. When I first saw the film back in 2014, I remember my initial reaction to Bradley Cooper was I thought he was trying a little too hard to do kind of that. I don't know what kind of accent it is really, but just kind of that tough guy, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
that was a terrible example, but
it's definitely a changed voice. It's not Bradley Cooper's typical.
Yeah, it's not his
sound.
regular voice. But especially watching it this time around, I think it's perfect. I think he did a great job with it and kind of nailed that character.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there.
I'm a very big Bradley Cooper fan in general.
Yeah.
So he just did it again.
People were kind of pushing for him a while back before Ryan Reynolds was cast. I think people were kind of pushing for him to play Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
Which would have been all right, I think.
Yeah, I think we probably talked about this in one of the podcasts, either Star Trek or the Green Lantern podcast, but I think Chris Pine would be an awesome Hal Jordan.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's almost sad that he's cast as Steve Trevor because now he can't be.
And I think that I'm wondering if that's one of the reasons why he got that role was because he had been brought up, not necessarily by the studio, but I know I'd seen him mentioned. And but this was before the Green Lantern movie.
Right.
Before Ryan Reynolds. And I'm wondering if they kind of just had him on a list. And
could be.
We're like, well, how about Steve Trevor?
Right. Well, especially I wonder if, I don't know when Green Lantern's going to be introduced, but I wonder if they're going to go with Jon Stewart or any of the other number of Green Lanterns.
Right.
Which it would be cool to see Jon Stewart. I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I think you'd have to go with Jon Stewart after Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
I'd say he's the next popular one. He was in the animated series, and
yeah,
he's a cool character. So, Zoe Saldana.
I think she's great. I don't know what to say about her, really, just because I don't, like, out of all those characters, it's going to sound sexist of me, I guess, but out of all those characters, she's my least favorite, I guess.
I agree with you.
And it's not because she's bad, it's just I don't think she really she doesn't bring as much to it as those other characters, I think, kind of did. And maybe I don't know if that's a writing thing, maybe it's Gamora doesn't bring as much, or if it's an acting thing, but like I said, I don't think she's bad by any means. It's just she was.
I don't think she was
bad,
but I don't think she was great either.
Right.
I think I really like her in Star Trek. I think she does a great Uhura. There were a couple moments where I felt like she was kind of missing in this. I felt like her sister, whatever her name is,
Nebula.
I thought she was a much stronger character than Gamora was. Gamora was okay though.
Yeah,
like I said, she wasn't bad, and I thought her chemistry was still there with the group.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when they're breaking out of prison, she says, "I'm going to die with a bunch of idiots" or whatever. Right. Like she's got her moments, obviously. But yeah, she's, like I said, I guess she's the least interesting. Speaking of Nebula, that's played by Karen Gillan, who is from Doctor Who, I believe. And I don't watch Doctor Who, so I did not know who she was before seeing this film. But I knew her name because I remember seeing when she was at Comic-Con and they were talking about, they brought the cast out for Guardians. She was wearing a wig, and she took off her wig. They shaved her head to play Nebula. And apparently that caused a lot of people to, like, freak out for whatever reason. And so because I knew she shaved her head, when I went to see this the first time, I thought that they had gotten the same actress to play Peter's mom. Because I also didn't really know what Karen Gillan looked like. Because I was like, she shaved her head for Nebula, so it makes sense that they just get her to play the mom as well, but that's not the case. It's actually played by somebody else.
You actually thought that Nebula was Peter's mom.
That's right. Yeah, she died and became Nebula. That's right. No, I didn't really think that. I just thought they had an actor kind of doing double duty, but that was not the case. Which I guess could have been confusing.
Speaking of his mom, that was a very, very emotional scene at the beginning. And especially when she holds out her hand.
And Peter doesn't take it.
And he doesn't take it. And just a few seconds
yeah.
of that.
She died of a broken heart, really, because he didn't take her hand.
Yeah. It's Peter's fault.
Yeah. It's Peter's fault.
She might have made it if he had taken her hand.
Yep. So Peter deserves everything he got.
But just that delay. Why do you think he didn't? Do you think he was just angry that he was losing his mom, and maybe he just couldn't accept that moment of this will be the last time I hold your hand, so he just didn't do it?
Yeah. It could be anger, it could be he was scared to do it,
Right.
I don't know.
But he only had a few seconds. And he lost that opportunity,
he hesitated. Yep.
It stuck with him, and they used that at the end. I really liked how they used that.
Yeah, me too.
However, I think that ending part is a little cheesy.
Do you?
Yeah.
I love the ending. There was another moment that I thought was kind of cheesy that I liked, and I was going to ask you about it, and I forget what it is. But that moment, I really actually like, where they're all holding on to each other, and he says, "We're the Guardians of the Galaxy." I think that's...
Yeah,
to me,
I like that
really
line.
Well. Yeah.
I did like that line. And I like I said, I liked when she's holding out her hand, and she's like, "Take my hand." Did she call him Peter? I think she does.
I think so, yeah.
because that's probably kind of what sparked, kind of like the Martha thing with Batman and Superman. Kind of sparks his brain.
Right.
And he remembers that moment, and I thought that was really brilliant. It was when Drax is like slowly creeping up, and then like slams his hand down on his shoulder, and then you have Rocket coming, and he's like holding out his finger in slow motion.
His little hand.
Yeah.
His little hand. No, none of that bothers me, I guess, but I could see how you would think it was cheesy.
But it wasn't, It's
not a deal breaker.
Not at all, because this movie's great.
Yeah. This movie is also one of the few Marvel movies that has opening credits and not at the end. Like actually in the film. I feel like most Marvel movies, their opening credits are at the very end of the film, and then there's a little mid-credit teaser they always put in there, and then they go into the end credits. But this one actually played it out in the beginning, and it's during that great scene of Peter's dance moves.
Yeah. Singing into the rodent.
Yeah.
Loved that. I did not see this in the theater.
Yeah.
And I bet that moment was eruption.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Of laughter.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I saw a midnight showing, and I almost kind of wish I had, because I bet it would have been even more laughter-filled of an audience than the one I saw it with. But it still went over well with what I saw.
Yeah. I'm seeing some pictures of Yondu with his mohawk for Guardians too, and yeah, it's got some length to it now.
Yeah, and it's much more like it was in the comics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this it's almost like a
regular mohawk.
To me, it looked almost like a piece of bone or something sticking out of his head.
Oh yeah, it looked metal-ish to me, but I could see. But it did look like it was protruding from the top of his head.
Right. Yeah, it's like coming out of his. It's not hair.
Right. No, not at all. But but I guess when I said it looks like a regular mohawk, I meant it was like shaped like a regular mohawk.
Gotcha. I like how it glows though.
Yeah.
When he's using his abilities and his eyes too.
Yeah.
Have that kind of glow.
I like the alien creatures and people in this film. It had a very kind of diverse group of species.
It does, and I like that too, but I was noticing at the end that there's a lot of human... What do they call them? What are they?
Terran?
Yeah, Terran. I mean, I'm assuming they're not Terran unless they were all people that were abducted.
But like all the Nova Corps people, yeah. I don't know if they're Terran or if they're...
Why are
Xandarian or something.
Yeah, where did they come from?
I'm assuming they're not Terran. I'm assuming they're native of... I don't know if it's Xandar, the planet that the Nova Corps is on at the end of the film. If they're Xandarian or something, or what. But I'm assuming they're not Terran. To me, I feel like the only Terran person is Peter Quill. But I mean, I could be wrong on that, but that's how I look at it.
Sure. Oh, no. I mean, that's what makes sense, and that's what I would assume. But I kind of wish that they had made it that way to where even if these people aren't...
had makeup on and stuff?
Yeah, because, I mean, how much more would that have given you the sense that this guy was...
alone.
Completely isolated, and alone from his world.
Yeah. It's very true.
Maybe they just couldn't, maybe it just wasn't in the budget to have all those makeup effects. I don't know.
That could be, yeah. I mean, that's a lot to have every single actor except for Chris Pratt in some sort of makeup. That'd be a lot. Speaking of makeup and characters, I think I may have mentioned this on the Batman episode, or maybe during our Batman commentary. So I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but the broker, the guy that Chris Pratt or Peter Quill tries to sell the orb to in the beginning, who then gets freaked out and kind of kicks him out of the store, that actor is the same actor from Batman, who was one of the thugs in the very beginning. And he's actually the guy that goes, "Don't kill me, man."
Really?
Yeah, that's the same actor. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep, pretty cool. That guy's British, actually, which makes sense now that you think about it, because Batman was shot in London.
Yeah.
But British actor. He was in Guardians. Pretty crazy.
You know who he reminded me of was the guy that works. I don't know the name of the. It's been a while since I've been super knowledgeable on Harry Potter stuff, but the guy that gives Harry his wand.
Oh, yeah. Ollivander?
Yeah. The guy that played him.
Played by John Hurt. Yeah, I could see this.
That was John Hurt. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see a resemblance there. I could see how you could see that.
Well, I know who John Hurt is, so.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he played Ollivander, though.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think you're right. I watched V for Vendetta the other day.
Oh yeah,
and saw John Hurt on there
on
the big screen, and I was like, that they picked him because 1984.
Was he in 1984? I've never actually seen 1984 or read 1984.
Read the book. I wasn't a big fan of the movie. It was. I'm pretty sure it was a pretty popular movie. Of course, the book was popular.
Very popular. Yeah.
The book is amazing. One of my favorites. And I think maybe that's why I didn't like the movie, was just because I liked the book so much. And
yeah. Did you watch it right after you read the book too? I did. See, that's always a problem, and that I do that too because I finish the book and then I'm like, I want to see the movie now.
Yeah, exactly. You're super excited to see the movie.
Yeah, and you pop in the movie and the book is so fresh on your brain that
you're
the movie just has no
nitpicking
chance.
And pointing out things like that wasn't how it was in the book, or it was so much better in the book.
Yeah. I do that almost all the I remember reading John Irving's The World According to Garp, and which is a fantastic book. And as soon as I got done reading the book, I watched the movie. And the movie, it's just, I'm sure it's a good movie, but it's not anything. It's not close to how good the book is. And I just remember thinking, this is terrible as I was watching it.
Yeah.
But I should rewatch it. And you could rewatch 1984. I don't know when you watched it, but
it's been a couple years. So
yeah, I think that now that the time has gone by and the book isn't so fresh, I bet we could watch those movies and enjoy them a little more.
Yeah. Question I have about Drax.
Yeah.
So at the end, when they're standing up to, speaking of which, did you have any idea, or had you heard of Ronan?
No,
I hadn't either.
Pretty much the only we said Yondu. He looked familiar, but other than Yondu and Thanos, I don't think I knew who anybody was in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing the more, the comic version of him, and I do not recognize him either. It's a very green outfit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't recognize him, but he does have that hammer. I kind of wish I had known these characters.
Yeah.
Because, I'm assuming that Star-Lord's ship was, pretty much taken from the comics. And, this hammer of Ronan, it would have been cool to see that and be like, oh, it's exactly like it was in the comics.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, what I was getting at with was Rocket flies a ship in and hits Ronan and Drax.
Yeah.
Like hardcore.
Right.
And Drax survives.
Yeah.
So how strong is this guy?
I'm guessing he's pretty strong, but I don't know if he's really strong enough to withstand something like that. And it was just...
I mean, it hit hard.
Yeah.
Now, I can understand Ronan surviving because, one, he has the Infinity Stone.
Right.
Two, even if he didn't, he's a powerful enough being to be able to hold and contain the Infinity Stone.
Mm-hmm.
So he was already powerful.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I didn't, unfortunately, do the research on Drax, I guess, that I should have.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Make me look stupid?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well.
No, it's all Ronan, though, going back on to Ronan for a second, I think, not knowing his character and not knowing what, now that I'm looking at him, he has kind of a Doctor Doom type of thing going on, the comic version of him.
Right.
But not knowing anything about him, I think his character looks really cool in the movie.
Yeah, and he was a good villain in general.
He was a good villain. He's, I was just watching, there's another thing I want to talk about in terms of score. But I was just watching a YouTube, those honest trailers they have on YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to watch all of them because I think sometimes they can take some of the fun out of the movie, but I was just watching the one on Civil War, and it was actually really funny. And they were talking about how, it's supposed to be this big event, these two characters fighting each other for the first time, but we saw them fight in Avengers, not a lot, but we saw them fight, and then we saw them fight again in something else, I forget. And so he was like, and now the voiceover guy was like, and now they're fighting again. He's like, yeah, this is what kind of happens when your villains suck. And I was like, wow, I guess that's kind of true, but not in this movie. I think Ronan is an excellent villain in this movie.
That's actually, it's funny you brought that up because that's exactly what I was thinking about, was about how Civil War kind of slipped up with their villain.
Yeah.
And this was not the case. I think the most impressive thing for me about this movie is how I didn't know anything about any of this story, any of these characters, and it hit. And I'm assuming, even though I didn't know anything really about Iron Man, I knew who Iron Man was. And I knew that he wasn't a superhero, that, he had a suit,
right,
and all this other stuff. But I guess it was kind of like what people that had never even heard of Iron Man
mm-hmm.
got to experience a good movie like Iron Man was. That's kind of like how this was for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's probably how it was for a lot of people.
I would assume pretty much everybody, because
pretty much,
we were talking about, who really knew who the Guardians were.
Right. I'm sure there was a lot of comic book, like the kind of the hardcore comic book fans knew who Guardians were.
Oh yeah, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this right now are like, how did you not know?
Right. And they're like, well, delete. Yeah. But and I feel like you and I, like I said before, I think we have a decent amount of comic knowledge. Not a whole lot. We're the casual comic fan, I would say. And we had never even heard of them. So whether it's just a blind spot for us, because or it was a title, I think it might have been a title that wasn't kind of in circulation when I was buying comics on a regular basis. And so I just never saw them. I just never saw the title, never really looked them up, or even knew to look them up. I don't know. But yeah, I agree. And you said it was they hit it, and I feel like they hit a home run.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, this movie's pretty much perfect on every level. And one of those levels is, I think it has a really great score. This was the other video I was wanting to talk about. There's a video about Marvel music. And it's also more kind of about modern day movie music rather than just Marvel. But they focus on Marvel a little more than the other films. But they asked these people on the street to hum music from Star Wars. And nobody has a problem. They start humming music from Star Wars. And then they ask them to hum music from James Bond, and everybody does it. And then they say Harry Potter, and everybody can hum the music for Harry Potter. And then they ask, can you hum any music from any of the Marvel films? And everybody just kind of goes, and nobody can do it. And they're like, why is that? And they go on to say that Marvel movies, their whole kind of reason is that Marvel movies play it safe in terms of the score. I think there's a little more to it than that in terms of Marvel. There was actually a Marvel tune that I could hum when I was watching the video. I immediately thought of the Avengers theme from the first Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a pretty great piece of music and memorable. But some of the other films don't have that memorable music. And I think part of that is because with Star Wars, John Williams did all 7 movies. And, Harry Potter, he did the first 3, but he set up a really great theme, obviously.
Right.
It's John Williams. And James Bond always has the same music in every movie, pretty much. So I think it's a little unfair to make those comparisons to Marvel, but
True,
part of the reason...
James Bond has been around since the 60s.
Yeah, he's been around for 50 years. So so it's a little unfair, but I also think that part of the reason that some people can't come up with any Marvel music is because almost every Marvel movie has a different composer. Iron Man 1, 2, and 3 all had different composers. Thor 1 and 2 had different composers. I'm hoping Guardians 2 has the same composer as Guardians 1, because I really like the music in this movie. And then Avengers 1 and 2 even had different composers. Avengers 1 was Alan Silvestri, and Avengers 2 was Danny Elfman and Brian Tyler. So I think that's part of the reason why the music doesn't stand out as much, is because it's constantly changing. But there's also, that video kind of goes on to talk about temp scores and how movies nowadays, a lot of times when they edit the movies, they'll throw in a temp score, and they'll end up watching the scene with that temp score so much that the director kind of gets attached to the temporary score, and then when the composer comes in, they ask them to basically just copy the temporary score.
Interesting.
So the composer also doesn't have as much freedom as they would like to have. And they do some comparisons. It's really crazy, because you can see they'll show the scene with the temporary music, and then they'll show the scene with the final score, and it's like the same song, basically.
Huh. Yeah, and I'm assuming that the temporary score, there's not a lot of heart that goes into it.
Well, the temporary score is usually just tracks from other movies. So it'll be like, I can't remember if it was Transformers or what, but they showed a scene from a movie that was using a song from Inception. Gotcha. And then they showed the movie, the song from the actual movie, and it sounded exactly like the song from Inception. So I'll send you the video. It's a really interesting video to watch. But I was thinking about this when I was watching Guardians, because I thought the music in this movie is really, really good, and it stands out, and it has that emotion to it that is perhaps lacking in some of the other Marvel films. And so yeah, I think it's Tyler Bates did the music for this movie, I believe, and I really hope that he kind of comes back for Guardians 2.
Yeah. One thing I'm a little concerned about with Guardians 2 is I'm afraid that they're going to, since the comedy was such a big hit in this movie, I'm afraid that it might get flooded.
Yeah. I'm a little worried about that too. It was, like I said, it was so natural in this first film that I'm worried that, they'll push it a little harder and try to throw in a few more jokes, and it's just going to feel a little oversaturated.
Yep, yeah, and forced. It'll feel forced.
Yeah. Hopefully not, but I don't know.
Hopefully not, but I can think of two instances where that happened recently. Well, kind of recently. It was Transformers and Iron Man.
Yeah. I feel like there's another one that we were talking about, too, that it kind of happened with. But Transformers is weird comedy, especially the second one and on, really.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the first one was just really good humor.
Yeah.
Like, it just hit.
Right.
And then the second one was, like you said, it was really weird humor. Yeah. Like almost, it was just kiddie humor.
Right.
But not.
Right.
Like, it was adult kid humor.
Right. Which I wonder if that's Michael Bay's humor.
I'm assuming, that was my assumption.
Yeah, Michael Bay might just be an adult kid. Iron Man didn't bother me as much, but I can see that, how you could think that, like, Robert Downey Jr., I'm sure they let him improvise a lot, and then once audiences kind of realize how funny he is, they let him have even more free reign in the following films. Did you think that about Avengers 2? Did Avengers 2 have too much comedy? Because the first one I felt like had a pretty perfect blend of action, comedy, and whatever.
I don't remember thinking Age of Ultron had too much comedy in it, so I don't think so. Okay. I've only seen it twice. But so I really can't tell for sure, but based on my memory, I don't think that was a problem.
Yeah, I don't remember it being a problem either. I think Avengers 2 had other problems, but I don't think the comedy was one of them. What did you think about the scene with Thanos and between Thanos and Ronan? Basically, there's 2 times Thanos is on screen in this film, but the one time he's like actually present.
I loved it.
Yeah, I did too. I thought, somewhere on the internet I read about how people thought he was too CGI'd in this film and didn't look real, didn't look good. But watching it this time, I thought it looks fine, and I think, it gets me excited for Infinity War. Because,
I mean, you can, when you look to see how CGI he is, yeah, you can see that he's CGI.
Sure,
but it's not a punch in your face.
Kind of the same, like you can tell Rocket's CGI.
Right, except, wow, he's so good. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an animal on there he is almost on the screen. Like,
photorealistic, yeah.
Yeah. And this movie came out 2 years ago.
Yep.
I keep finding myself saying more and more frequently how impressed I am with CGI. I don't want them to become dependent on it completely yet, but
I think they already have.
Well, yeah, sort of. I think they've kind of cut back a little bit and blended, kind of met halfway. But they're getting real close to where they're going to be able to start doing it soon and it work.
Yeah.
But I felt like seeing Thanos finally was kind of a breath of fresh air and something that we've been waiting for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I remember being pretty excited when I saw him on screen the first time I saw this movie.
Yeah. And I love the way that he was presented, and he seems very menacing and intimidating.
Yeah.
So I give him a thumbs up for that.
Yeah, me too. I saw a comic the other day that made me laugh. It was about because you remember at the end of Avengers: Age of Ultron, spoilers. The post-credit sequences, Thanos' his like kind of chamber opens up, and you see him say, he goes, "Fine," and he puts on the gauntlet and he goes, "I'll do it myself."
Yeah.
Well, the comic shows that scene, and then it cuts to, I guess it was Captain America: Civil War, and he was like, it showed him like tying his shoes, and then it showed it might have been Ant-Man or something, and it showed him putting on his jacket. And then it said Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and he was like, not even the one that's in space. And then it showed another title for a film, Doctor Strange maybe or something, and it was just like he was bored. He was just like waiting for Infinity War to show up. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot riding on him. He's got quite some big expectations, so I hope he can deliver, because we've been waiting on this guy since 2008.
Yeah. I mean, I would say maybe 2012.
Yeah.
Because that's when he first kind of showed up in the movies, was at the end of Avengers. But still, I mean, and I'm curious how it's going to go with those other characters fighting Thanos, because he seems to really fit more in the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of universe. Like, he fits in this movie, and I'm curious how it'll work with these other characters who have been grounded in reality as much as you can, you know. But
with the exception of Thor, I mean, you did have Thor, and Ragnarok is going to take place, on another planet. So
right.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, like, Captain America.
Right. Iron Man fighting Thanos.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
I'm excited for it, but yeah, I'm curious. Curious as to how it'll be. Well, I don't have a whole lot more else to say about Guardians. You got anything else?
No, the only real thing that really stood out to me was with Rocket. That moment where you really get a moment with him and connect with him when he's fighting with Drax in the
Yeah.
In the bar, and
he called me vermin.
Yeah, you really see his emotion come out. It's just to have a character like that's not real, and I mean, you connect with Disney characters and stuff in animation, but this one that's portrayed in a real live action movie, and we were talking about how all the characters have this chemistry, and he really is like one of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like he could have easily been a two-dimensional character who was just a wisecracking, gun-toting raccoon, But they actually, you're right, they gave him depth, and he's got that moment where you see some true emotion, and then there's also at the end when he's like mourning Groot.
Right.
I think he's got some very kind of human, I guess, moments that really make his character even stronger. Yeah, Rocket and Groot, man, I think they're my favorites. I think they're just the most fun to watch. But Drax is also very good as well.
I love me some Star-Lord myself.
Yeah. So
but
what do you think?
I like them all.
Yeah. You saw the end credits scene, right? Post credits scene with Benicio?
Yes.
That was interesting. Everybody sits around now in these Marvel movies hoping to see a glimpse of hopefully the next film. That's kind of what I think we all want, and they don't really do that quite as much anymore, or they haven't really in the past few films. And this one was particularly different because we got a little dancing Groot, which was fun right before the credits roll. But then at the very end we see Benicio and we're like, all right, here we go. And then it's just Howard the Duck talking to him, and you're just like, all right, that was different.
Right.
So now Howard the Duck exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
He does, and I guarantee you, we can bet money on this, he is going to be the fifth Infinity Stone.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Would that not be the biggest troll ever?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's about that time. Let's give it a rating.
This one's a hard one for me. I'm in between 4 and 5 stars out of 5.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to give it 4 out of 5.
Oh. Well, I got to ask you then, what keeps it from getting that 5th star?
That's a great question, and I can't really answer out front what it would be, but it just isn't. It isn't on the level of movies such as Jurassic Park,
sure,
and stuff like that.
That's that's exactly kind of how I feel, but I can't really say. I can't really give this movie any points off for anything. There's really nothing I can think of that would detract it from getting an A+. But I also feel like an A+ is more deserving of, films like you said, like Jurassic Park or, The Godfather or something. But at the same time, I can't think of anything to subtract points. So I'm going to give it an A+.
I can't fault you for that.
Yeah.
I can't. Like I said, it's a balance, teeter for me. And I say this a lot. If I could give if I gave half stars, then I'd pretty sure I'd give it 4.5. But
yeah,
I got to go with 4. Great movie.
Yeah,
great movie.
It's definitely I don't know if it's my favorite Marvel movie. I still think Avengers 1 is maybe my favorite just because of seeing that movie for the first time on the big screen was just phenomenal. And I don't think any of the Marvel movies have quite given me that same experience. But this movie is definitely up there in the top 3 best Marvel films, if not the top 2.
Nice.
Well, we'd love to know what you think about Guardians of the Galaxy. You can leave us a comment on our website, www.cinemaheroes.com. You can throw us a line on Twitter @CinemaHeroes, or you can go to Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SM Podcast. I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading.